Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a woman sitting quietly in a park. No one comes to join her. She doesn't scroll through her phone or glance around nervously, searching for someone to acknowledge her. She simply sits, utterly at ease, as if the world itself were her only companion. Now I ask you, why does this image make us uncomfortable? Why do we instinctively wonder what is wrong with her? Is she lonely? Is she lonely? Is she sad? Or could it be that she possesses something we seldom recognize, the profound strength of solitude? Tonight I invite you to explore a story, not of loneliness, but of liberation. A woman with no friends, far from being an outcast, may embody a life rich with self-discovery and resilience. Together, let's unravel the beauty, the challenges, and the profound wisdom hidden in her journey. By the end of this speech, you may find yourself reconsidering everything you've ever believed about relationship, society, and what it truly means to belong. Let us begin. Imagine a woman who exists in the spaces where most people avoid looking. She is not part of the usual groups, the coffee meetups, the gym partners, or the weekend getaways that seem to dominate the lives of so many. She walks alone, dines alone, and seems untouched by the bustle of companionship that surrounds her. For many, this would seem unimaginable, a life devoid of friends. But perhaps the real mystery is not why she has no friends, but what her existence reveals about the way we view our own lives. Solitude is an enigma. It carries a stigma that often overshadows its deeper truths. In a world where connection is celebrated and loneliness feared, a woman with no friends becomes a puzzle. People question her choices. Some pity her, imagining a life filled with longing and isolation. Others judge her, assuming flaws in her personality that make her unworthy of companionship. Yet beneath these assumptions lies a deeper layer, a space that invites us to reflect not on her, but on ourselves. Our society thrives on the narrative that to be loved and connected is to live fully. From childhood, we are taught to make friends, to share, to include, and to be included. These lessons are not inherently flawed. They are essential for building communities and fostering empathy. But somewhere along the way, we confuse connection with validation. We begin to measure our worth by the number of people who surround us. We feel uneasy when we see someone who seems to exist outside this norm, as if her solitude threatens the very fabric of what we've been taught to value. This unease is revealing. It suggests that we have become so reliant on external connections that the idea of someone thriving without them challenges our understanding of fulfillment. We wonder, can a person be content without friends? Is it possible to live a life that is meaningful and whole without the constant reinforcement of belonging? These questions unsettle us because they hint at a truth we often avoid. Many of us fear being alone, not because of the absence of others, but because of what it forces us to confront within ourselves. The woman with no friends is not a void waiting to be filled. She is not defined by what she lacks, but by what she has cultivated in the space of her solitude. Her quiet existence is a reflection of an inner world that is often overlooked. It suggests that there is a richness to be found in simply being, in listening to the rhythms of one's own thoughts, and in observing the world without the noise of others' opinions and expectations. Her life invites us to reconsider the idea that relationships are the ultimate measure of human experience. Her solitude may not be a choice, or it may be a deliberate rejection of shallow connections. Either way, it forces us to look beyond the surface. In her aloneness, there is a kind of purity, a space free from the distractions and compromises that often accompany friendships. This is not to diminish the value of meaningful relationships, but to suggest that their absence does not equate to a lesser life. The woman with no friends is a mirror reflecting back the parts of ourselves we are reluctant to face, the parts that long for validation, that fear irrelevance, and that struggle to find peace in solitude. Her presence in the world reminds us of a deeper truth. Solitude is not an emptiness, but a fullness of a different kind. It is a state that allows for introspection, creativity, and a profound sense of self-awareness. In her quiet existence, she challenges the narrative that to be alone is to be incomplete. She invites us to question whether we are truly connected to others or merely tethered to them out of habit and fear. Her life, though unconventional, offers a perspective that is both unsettling and deeply transformative. From the moment we are born, we are immersed in a narrative that elevates connection as the cornerstone of human existence. Stories, traditions, and cultural expectations weave an intricate tapestry that underscores the importance of relationships. Families, friendships, and communities are painted as the essential fabric of a meaningful life, leaving little room for the value of solitude. In this framework, a woman with no friends becomes an outlier, a figure who seems to defy the very essence of what we are told life should be. Her existence calls into question the narratives that have shaped our understanding of belonging and fulfillment. Society loves to romanticize togetherness. Movies, books, and even social media reinforce the idea that happiness is found in the company of others. Shared laughter, mutual support, and the warmth of companionship are celebrated as the ultimate expressions of a life well lived. These images are powerful, but they also create a subtle pressure, a silent insistence that to be alone is to miss out on the richness of life. A woman with no friends becomes a contradiction in this narrative, an unexpected pause in the flow of societal norms. She stands as a reminder that there are lives lived outside the frameworks we hold so dear. This cultural emphasis on relationships often leads us to overlook the complexities of human connection. Not all relationships are nurturing, and not all companionships bring joy. Yet the pressure to maintain friendships, even superficial ones, can compel people to invest in connections that lack depth or authenticity. For some, this dynamic becomes a burden rather than a blessing, a source of exhaustion rather than enrichment. A woman who has stepped away from this cycle, whether by choice or circumstance, may embody a kind of freedom that is both misunderstood and undervalued. Her solitude challenges the notion that relationships are inherently beneficial and forces us to confront the complexities of social expectations. In many ways, the cultural narrative around relationships is built on an assumption of scarcity, the idea that love, connection, and validation are limited resources to be pursued and secured. This mindset can lead to a fear of solitude, as if being alone were a sign of failure or inadequacy. The woman with no friends disrupts this assumption. Her life suggests that fulfillment is not dependent on the number of connections we have, but on the quality of our relationship with ourselves. In a society that places so much emphasis on external validation, her existence can feel like a radical act, a quiet rebellion against the norms that govern our lives. At the heart of this cultural narrative is the belief that to be seen and acknowledged by others is to matter. From social media likes to social gatherings, the idea of being connected has become synonymous with being valued. Yet this external focus can sometimes overshadow the importance of internal validation. A woman with no friends, living outside these expectations, invites us to reconsider where we place our sense of worth. Is it found in the approval of others, or can it be cultivated within ourselves? Her life, though unconventional, offers an alternative perspective that is often overlooked in a society fixated on connection. This exploration of cultural expectations also reveals how deeply ingrained these narratives are in our understanding of success and happiness. People often equate a rich social life with a rich life in general, without questioning the assumptions underlying this belief. A woman with no friends becomes an anomaly, not because her life lacks meaning, but because it defies the standards by which we typically measure fulfillment. Her existence forces us to look beyond the surface, to question the metrics we use to define a good life, and to consider the possibility that there is more to happiness than the relationships we cultivate. Deep within the human spirit lies a profound capacity for self-reflection, an ability to turn inward and explore the vast, uncharted territories of the mind and soul. For a woman with no friends, this capacity often becomes her guiding force. Without the distractions of constant social interactions or the noise of external validation, she is left with herself as her primary companion. This state of solitude, while often misunderstood, can lead to an extraordinary richness of inner life that many never come to know. It is not a life devoid of meaning, but one where meaning is found in the quiet spaces often overlooked. The absence of friendships creates an environment where the internal world becomes the primary focus. Here, thoughts are not diluted by the opinions of others, and emotions are not suppressed to maintain harmony within a group. This woman has the freedom to listen to her inner voice, to confront her fears, and to nurture her dreams without the interference of outside influences. In this solitude, she finds the time and space to cultivate self-awareness, a depth of understanding about who she is, what she values, and what she aspires to be. This self-awareness can become a source of great strength, allowing her to navigate life with clarity and intention. Creativity often flourishes in solitude, and for a woman with no friends, this can be one of her greatest gifts. Without the constant pull of social obligations, she has the opportunity to delve deeply into her passions and interests. Whether she paints, writes, gardens, or simply observes the world around her, her creativity is born from a space of authenticity. She does not create to impress others or to gain approval, but because it brings her joy and fulfillment. In this way, her solitude becomes a wellspring of inspiration, a place where her unique perspective on life can take shape and flourish. The woman with no friends often becomes a keen observer of the world. Without the distractions of social chatter, she notices the subtleties of her surroundings, the way the sunlight filters through the trees, the rhythm of a city waking up, or the quiet stillness of a starry night. These moments, so easily missed in the hustle and bustle of a connected life, become her treasures. They remind her of the beauty and complexity of existence, grounding her in a sense of wonder and appreciation for the world as it is. This heightened awareness enriches her experience of life, turning the mundane into something extraordinary. Solitude also allows her to confront the parts of herself that others might never see. In the quiet of her own company, she faces her doubts, insecurities, and fears without distraction. This process is not always comfortable, but it is profoundly transformative. It is through these moments of introspection that she learns resilience, finding strength in her ability to endure and grow. Her solitude becomes a crucible in which her character is forged, not in the presence of others, but in the profound stillness of being alone. This inner journey, though often hidden from the world, shapes her into someone deeply grounded and self-reliant. The richness of her inner life does not mean that she is isolated or disconnected from the world. On the contrary, her solitude allows her to connect with life in ways that are often overlooked. She sees herself not as separate from the world, but as an integral part of it. Her experiences are not filtered through the lens of social expectations, but instead deeply personal and authentic. She engages with life on her terms, finding meaning in the small, quiet moments that others might take for granted. This deep connection to herself and her surroundings creates a life that is not defined by the absence of friends, but by the presence of a profound inner richness. In the solitude of her existence, a woman with no friends becomes uniquely attuned to the rhythms of independence. Living without the constant interplay of companionship, she learns to rely on her own abilities, intuition, and judgment. This is not merely an adaptation to her circumstances, but a transformative process that reveals the boundless potential of self-sufficiency. The strength that emerges from such independence is profound, rooted not in the validation of others, but in an unshakable trust in oneself. Independence is often misunderstood in a world that prizes interdependence. Society tends to view it as a lonely or isolating state, a fallback for those unable to connect with others. Yet, for the woman who walks alone, independence is not a burden but a source of empowerment. It allows her to make decisions free from external pressures, to chart her own path without the need for consensus or approval. Her life becomes a testament to the freedom that comes from living authentically, guided by her own values and aspirations rather than the expectations of others. This independence is not without its challenges. Without the buffer of friendship, she faces life's difficulties directly, without the immediate support of others to soften the blow. Yet, it is precisely through these challenges that her resilience is forged. Each obstacle becomes an opportunity to test her strength, to prove to herself that she is capable of navigating the complexities of life on her own terms. She learns to weather storms without seeking shelter in the opinions or assurances of others, and in doing so, she discovers a deep well of inner courage and resourcefulness. Her independence also fosters a unique sense of accountability. With no one else to share the blame or shoulder the responsibility, she becomes fully aware of the consequences of her choices. This heightened accountability sharpens her decision-making and deepens her understanding of cause and effect. She approaches life with a deliberate and thoughtful perspective, knowing that her actions are her own and that their outcomes, whether positive or negative, rest squarely on her shoulders. This level of self-responsibility is both liberating and humbling, a constant reminder of her agency and its impact. Beyond the practical aspects of independence, there is a profound emotional strength that emerges from living without the constant presence of friends. In a society that often equates emotional security with the support of others, she finds it within herself. She becomes her own confidant, learning to process her feelings and navigate her emotions without external validation or reassurance. This emotional self-reliance does not mean she is immune to loneliness or pain, but it equips her to face these experiences with a sense of stability and grace that is entirely her own. Her independence also allows her to explore her identity in a way that is unencumbered by the influence of others. Friendships, while enriching, often come with an unspoken expectation of alignment, shared opinions, mutual interests, and common goals. Without these social dynamics, she is free to fully embrace her individuality, to explore her thoughts and passions without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. This freedom to be herself is a rare and precious gift, one that fosters a profound sense of authenticity and self-acceptance. In her solitude, she also gains a unique perspective on relationships. Without being enmeshed in the complexities of friendships, she observes them from a distance, gaining insights into their dynamics and value. This detachment does not make her dismissive of relationships, but allows her to approach them with clarity and intention. She recognizes that while connections can be meaningful, they are not the sole measure of a life well lived. Her independence becomes a lens through which she sees the world, one that values relationships not as necessities, but as choices that must be genuine and enriching. A woman with no friends often lives in a world of heightened observation. Without the constant pull of social engagement, her attention shifts to the intricacies of her surroundings, the patterns of life, and the unspoken truths that shape human behavior. Her solitude allows her to step back and view the world with a clarity that is often obscured by the noise of relationships. In this quiet space, she becomes a student of life, an observer who sees what others might overlook, and her insights reveal dimensions of existence that remain hidden to many. This observational life is not a passive existence, but an active engagement with the world. Free from the distractions of social obligations, she finds herself noticing the nuances of the natural world, the delicate interplay of light and shadow, the way the wind carries whispers of distant places, the subtle choreography of animals moving through their habitats. These details, so often missed by those immersed in constant interaction, become her companions. They offer her a sense of connection that transcends the human realm, reminding her that she is part of a vast and interconnected universe. In observing others, she gains a deeper understanding of human nature. She watches how people interact, the subtle cues of body language, the unspoken agreements that govern conversations, and the emotional undercurrents that shape relationships. From her vantage point, she sees the beauty and complexity of these connections, as well as the struggles and contradictions that often accompany them. This perspective does not make her cynical or detached. Instead, it fosters a sense of compassion and empathy. She understands the challenges of being human, because she sees them play out in the lives of those around her, even if she is not directly involved. Her observational life also extends to the societal structures that shape behavior. Without the distractions of personal entanglements, she has the mental space to consider the larger forces at play: cultural norms, societal expectations, and the ways in which people navigate these constructs. She sees how these forces influence choices, create pressures, and sometimes lead individuals away from their authentic selves. This awareness gives her a unique perspective on freedom, as she recognizes the ways in which she, by stepping outside these dynamics, has reclaimed a measure of autonomy over her own life. In her solitude, she also turns her observational lens inward. With no one to mirror her thoughts and emotions, she becomes intimately acquainted with her inner world. She notices the patterns of her thinking, the cycles of her emotions, and the subtle shifts in her perceptions. This self-awareness deepens her understanding of who she is and how she relates to the world. It is through this inward observation that she finds clarity, as she is able to untangle the threads of her experiences and make sense of her journey without external interference. Her observational skills often translate into a heightened sense of appreciation for the world around her. She does not take the ordinary for granted because she has the time and space to truly see it. A simple cup of tea becomes a moment of ritual, a walk in the park becomes an exploration of textures and sounds, and a passing smile from a stranger becomes a reminder of the quiet connections that exist in fleeting moments. These small experiences, overlooked by many, become sources of joy and inspiration in her life. In observing life from a place of detachment, she also learns the value of stillness. She is not in a rush to fill her days with activity or her heart with validation from others. Instead, she embraces the flow of life as it is, finding beauty in its natural rhythms. This stillness allows her to absorb the world fully, to let its truth sink in without distortion or distraction. It is in this state of quiet presence that she discovers the richness of simply being, a richness that is not dependent on companionship, but on the depth of her engagement with life itself. The woman with no friends finds herself navigating the concept of loneliness, not as an affliction, but as a profound state of being that shapes her perception of life. Loneliness, in her experience, is not a mere absence of company. It is a space that allows her to confront the raw essence of her existence. In a world that often fears isolation, she learns to face it head-on, unraveling its complexities and discovering the layers of insight it holds. This journey through loneliness is transformative, teaching her lessons about herself, connection, and the nature of fulfillment. At first, loneliness may present itself as an aching void, a reminder of the human desire for companionship and belonging. It is an experience that many would seek to avoid, filling the silence with distractions or clinging to relationships that may not serve them. Yet, for her, loneliness becomes an invitation to explore the depths of her soul. It strips away the noise of external validation, leaving her with the unadulterated truth of who she is. In this quiet space, she begins to see herself clearly, unfiltered by the expectations or opinions of others. This clarity brings with it a sense of liberation. In loneliness, she is free to be entirely herself without the need to conform or compromise. She learns to listen to her inner voice, to trust her instincts, and to honor her desires. This freedom allows her to cultivate a life that is authentic and true to her essence. It is a freedom that many seek but few achieve, as it requires the courage to face oneself without the distractions of societal pressures or the comfort of constant companionship. Through her solitude, she also discovers the profound difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Being alone is a physical state, one that she often inhabits, while loneliness is an emotional experience, one that she learns to navigate. She realizes that loneliness is not a permanent condition, but a passing wave, one that can be embraced rather than feared. By sitting with her loneliness, she uncovers its hidden gifts, a deeper understanding of her emotional landscape, a heightened appreciation for the connections she does have, and a renewed sense of resilience. Loneliness also teaches her the value of meaningful connection. In its absence, she comes to understand the importance of authenticity in relationships. She learns that it is not the quantity of connections that matters, but their quality. This understanding shapes her interactions, making her more intentional about the bonds she chooses to form. She seeks connections that are genuine, relationships that resonate with her true self, rather than those built on convenience or superficiality. This discernment ensures that when she does connect with others, it is a connection of depth and significance. Her experience of loneliness also fosters a sense of empathy. By walking the path of solitude, she becomes attuned to the struggles of others who may feel unseen or isolated. This empathy allows her to connect with people on a deeper level, even in brief encounters. She understands the silent pain that loneliness can bring, but she also knows its potential to inspire growth and self-discovery. This dual perspective enables her to offer compassion and understanding, even when she herself remains on the periphery of traditional social circles. In her exploration of loneliness, she also finds creativity. The quiet moments of solitude become a canvas for her thoughts, a space where ideas take root and flourish. Without the distractions of constant interaction, her mind is free to wander, to dream, and to create. This creative energy becomes a source of joy and fulfillment, an outlet for her emotions and a reflection of her unique perspective. It is in these moments that she discovers the beauty of solitude, the way it allows her to engage with the world on her own terms and to find meaning in the act of creation. As she delves deeper into her loneliness, she begins to see it not as an enemy, but as a companion on her journey. It is a presence that challenges her, pushes her, and ultimately strengthens her. Through it, she learns to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, to find value in both connection and solitude. She understands that loneliness is not something to be eradicated, but something to be understood and integrated into her life. It becomes a teacher, guiding her toward a greater appreciation of herself, others, and the world around her.